Hints by RanMouri82. We need to walk back. Can't we just call a cab? Sans grumbled as he opened the door of Grillby's Surface restaurant, held it open for Frisk, and walked onto the street lamp-streaked sidewalk. His star necklace stood out all the more against his black turtleneck sweater. "I'm fine. Just a little indigestion. We had a big dinner," said Frisk, sticking their tongue out at him. "So don't even think of being too lazy to walk home." Truth was that Frisk was getting a bit worried about gaining weight, not that they were going to tell Sans and become a prime target for his diet puns. Any exercise would help at this point, and fortunately, Sans' coat was always warm. Besides, it's not that cold. Spring's coming. Frisk gazed up at the cloud-covered night sky and breathed in the fresh, chill air. "I can't wait for you to see it." They soon felt Sans train his eye sockets on them. "Stop staring," Frisk said, feeling their cheeks heat up and knowing, just knowing, they glowed brighter than a neon sign. "Sorry, sweetheart," Sans said, threading his fingers through theirs. "Blame yourself, not me." "What does that mean?" they said, arching an eyebrow and narrowing their red eyes. "That right there. You're too damn cute." Sans glanced sidelong at them and grinned. "Can't help but stare at you." Frisk faced forward, and here they thought their husband could make them blush no brighter. Guess they were wrong. Passing the local 24-hour convenience store, they stopped. "Oh, let's stop in here." "Okay, sure," Sans said, shrugging. "What for?" "Just milk." "Don't we have milk at home?" Sans knitted his bony brow in confusion. "Yes, but I want to drink some on the way," Frisk said, a bounce in their step as they waved to the cashiers in front. They knew the stout, dark woman who worked the register in the daytime. Rosa waved back, as expected. She always had a jolly smile for everyone and asked them by name about their health, their kids, and anything under the sun. She was busy at the moment, however, exchanging tills with a redhead who looked bored beyond belief. It was all poor Rosa could do to pry the girl's attention away from her text messages. Breezing through the nearest aisle to the glass refrigerator doors in the back, Frisk soon found what they wanted. A plastic quart of 2%, not skim. They really wanted whole, but hoped 2% would be healthy enough not to waste the calories burned by the walk. Sweetheart?" Sans said, pointing to the single-serving bottles at their eye level. Frisk pouted and grabbed the quart behind them anyway. By the time they returned to the front of the store, the redhead had settled in and stuck a dum-dum lollipop in her mouth. But her mouth fell open when Sans approached, and the purple lollipop slipped from her lips, fell on the counter, and cracked. Sans chuckled and his gold tooth sparkled as the cashier gaped at him, her face flushing to match her hair. "Hey, doll face." "Cut it out," Frisk said, elbowing him playfully in the rib cage. There was no snapping the girl out of it now, so Frisk left what they assumed was more than enough money and tugged Sans by the arm out of the store. As soon as they stepped outside and let the door's chimes ring behind them, they opened the bottle, thankful the stunned cashier did not bother bagging it. Frisk released a blissful sigh. "Better." "Dunno about you, but I prefer milkshakes," said Sans, leading Frisk by the arm across the street before the light changed. "Mm-mm," Frisk said, taking another gulp and then shaking their head. "Too thick and sweet. Gets in the way." "Of what?" Sans said, snickering. "The milk?" "Yup," Frisk said, straight-faced as they took another swig. "Shoulda known I married a weirdo," he replied, winding his arm around their waist. "And you drown your fries in mustard," laughed Frisk. Though most of the trees above ground were bare thanks to the winter, like the rare deciduous tree in the ruins, Frisk and Sans strolled past a grove of evergreens. Sans would never say it, but Frisk knew he was enamored with them. Maybe the pines made him feel at home again, not that he would ever admit being attached to Snowdon. The boughs partially concealed a house with an attached garage that opened as Frisk and Sans walked by. A blue SUV pulled out of the driveway, and then a man parked and left the car as a woman waved frantically at him from the front door. Frisk heard a passing conversation. "Let me guess," the man said, taking a slip of paper from the woman. "Haagen-Dazs?" "Not even close," the woman said, pointing to the list. "Ben & Jerry's. Chunky Monkey if they have it, Cherry Garcia if they don't." "And what if they have neither?" the man said, scratching his head. "Call me. Hopefully the Splashy will knock out Jason if M stops blasting her video game." Rubbing her lower abdomen, the woman gave him a quick kiss. "Thanks, hun." Frisk giggled. "What's so funny, honey?" Sans said, smirking. "Man on a mission," Frisk said, leaning on Sans' shoulder. A hint of regret tugged at Frisk, but they could not place where it came from. "Sans, do you like it on the surface?" "Heh, do I like not being trapped under a shitty mountain? What do you think?" Sans stroked their hair, parting its silky strands. "I know," they said, shaking their head. "Silly question." Soon they reached their house. Though only the porch light was on, it looked as cozy and inviting as the day Frisk's monster parents first showed it to them. A little big, though Frisk didn't mind that much. "Course," he said softly in their ear, "that's not all I like best." "Smooth," Frisk said, blushing as they checked the mailbox. Junk mail and the gas bill. Any official business was usually shipped FedEx. Then they sighed. "Something wrong?" Sans said, turning to look at them while unlocking their door. "I don't know." Frisk shrugged and dropped the mail onto a table beside the coat rack. "Kinda stressful, huh? Helping monsters and humans play nice?" Sans gave them a lopsided grin and helped them remove their, formerly his, coat. "Nothing compared to before, but, I was kinda hoping you'd catch a break after all that." Maybe a little." Lifting the quart bottle, Frisk shook the bottom and then drained the last of the milk. They smiled. "I'm just glad we're together." "Me too, sweetheart," Sans said, picking up the empty milk bottle with magic and tossing it into the kitchen trash bin. He held out his hand. "Come here." Frisk took it and laid their head against his breastbone as Sans drew them into an embrace. Looking back, there were many little things, many hints of what was happening before they learned Frisk was already pregnant with Sans' twins. But at that moment, in that very quiet night, they were just a couple who had survived hell and shared the secret fulfillment of their secret longing. Anything for You by Kazefiend. "Will they have hot chocolate?" the 7-year-old asked, hand tightly holding his father's and swinging it back and forth. "Dunno, bud. Maybe," Sans replied with a smile. "You okay up there, sweet pea?" "Mm-hmm," his daughter nodded, tightly hugging Sans' skull from her perch on his shoulders. A gust of wind caused her to shiver. Sans used his free hand to pull his fur hood over her shoulders. It was a warm February afternoon, the perfect weather for snowmen and snowball fights, as the snow was just melted enough to hold its shape. The trio had partaken in a snowball fight or two in the front yard before making their own way to the winter carnival being held by the twins' school. Originally, Frisk was going to go with them. They were becoming quite involved in the Parent-Teacher Association, but had business coming up. Being technically the Princess of Monsters and ambassador meant that sometimes they were needed by their parents for diplomatic situations. Sans noted how formal and sexy Frisk looked when they wore their outfit adorned with delta runes. It took all of Frisk's will to resist his advances and make it out the door. With a giggle, they promised that they would spend time with him later. "Dad, will they have cookies?" Verdana asked, mind very much on the topic of food. "What about hamburgers?" "Probably." Sans shrugged and noted the kid's healthy appetite was definitely from him rather than Frisk. The carnival was at a local park within reasonable walking distance of their home. Large, colorful banners and flags came into view, several booths serving food and lots of happy children running around excitedly. The center of the park had a large frozen pond where parents and small children were skating. "Hey, Vivaldi and Verdana, you guys made it!" a teacher called out as Sans and his brood approached the entrance.
Hi, Miss Hanwell.
the twins said, both flashing her shark-like smiles.
Mrs. Dreamer won't be making it today?
Asked the teacher as she strained to look up at Sans. She was much too short for this. Yeah, official monster business, Sans said with a hint of pride in his voice. They were needed right away.
Oh, how sweet,
Miss Hanwell smiled.
You kids like hanging out with your daddy?
Sans narrowed his eye sockets. What an odd thing to ask. The twins nodded earnestly.
You kids go have fun, okay?
She seemed satisfied with their reply. Mr. Dreamer, we have picnic tables cleaned off over by the skating pond if you want to mingle with the other parents. Yep, Sans replied and walked away from the woman, mood still slightly soured over her question. Why wouldn't his kids like hanging out with him? He spent tons of time with them. Finding a free picnic table, Sans lifted Vivaldi off his shoulder and onto the ground, gently fixing her wind-blown hair. What do you guys want to do first?
I want to build a castle over there.
Vivaldi pointed over to a place where children were building various snowmen and sculptures.
Can I go? I see Cynthia.
A small blonde was building what looked like a snowcat. All right, play nice, sweet pea. He planted a quick kiss on her forehead before she ran off. What about you, buddy? He turned his attention over to Verdana, who was practically bouncing with excitement.
Snowball fight!
Ver nearly ran off. Sans grabbed his arm and gently pulled him back. Slow down, kiddo. Sans picked up a loose bobby pin from Verdana's hair. You sure you don't want to be a skeleton? Sans asked as he fixed his son's hair, pinning unruly bangs to the side. Verdana shook his head. They don't want to play with me when I am. Ow, that hurt. 'Kay, go have fun. I'll be here. His son ran off towards what Sans could only describe as a snowball battlefield. Papyrus would have fun here. Maybe. Or would have caused unimaginable chaos. Sans yawned, one arm propping up his head, eyes switching between watching his daughter build a lovely castle and his son pummeling children with snowballs. This was supposed to be an area for parents to mingle, but no one came over to even offer a greeting. He supposed it was because he was a giant skeleton monster, and the people around were most likely tiny human women and some human men in fancy parkas. Oh well, he wasn't much for small talk. What could he possibly have in common with Sally Joe who ran the bake sale? Why did all the human mothers have the same pixie cut? What are you doing here, Bone Man? A gruff voice asked. Sans ignored him, not really into a confrontation. Vivaldi was working on setting up the walls of her castle. That was much more interesting than dealing with some potentially racist fuckhead. Can't hear without ears? The man wasn't giving up. Sans rolled his eyes and peered at him out the corner of his eye sockets. The man looked about 6 feet tall. Good, he was shorter, surrounded by 4 boys of varying ages. Nothing. Want to sit? I'm Bonely. A comedian, huh? The man wasn't an appreciator of puns, it seemed. You know what I'm fucking asking. I don't see any skeleton kids around here. You aren't gonna steal some poor kids and eat 'em or something. Was this guy serious? Sans chuckled, flashing his pointed teeth. Gotta get 'em young when the bones are soft. This would probably only escalate the situation, but it was funny pushing this asshole's buttons. Human kids go great with mustard. Don't be a fucking sicko. The man waved his boys away. What are you doing here? Come on, man, I'm watching my kids. The fun had worn off. This was now needlessly annoying. I told you I don't see any skeleton kids. The man repeated it like it was supposed to discredit Sans somehow. Gee, I guess that means my kids don't look like me, huh? If sarcasm could kill, that man would be dead. The kids with the buttercup clips are mine. It's so cold out, so you think you'd have some chill. Poor kids, the man sneered. Their mama has a shitty taste in a stepdaddy. Sans set his face in his hands. Holy shit, this guy was a pain. Pick up a fucking paper. They're hybrid twins. His children's birth had been heavily talked and written about. Being the first of their kind, Sans was almost surprised this idiot didn't know about them. I don't assume you can read, though, pal. Maybe Sans should have asked Papyrus to come along. People left him completely alone. The man, clearly done with Sans' bullshit, stormed away, sitting at a picnic table some distance away. He hollered for one of his boys and whispered something in his ear. Sans paid no mind, hoping that would be the most interesting part of his day. Vivaldi's castle was coming around great, and Verdana had finally been bested by his peers and been given a face wash. You kind of earned that, buddy, Sans chuckled. Verdana had been using his magic to levitate snowballs and annihilate his classmates. When he eventually grew tired from magic use, the kids saw their opportunity and playfully threw him into a mound of soft snow. A scream snapped Sans away from his son's antics. A boy, one of the sons of the asshole from earlier, had grabbed Vivaldi by her hair and smashed her face into the wall of her snow castle. In an instant, Sans was at her side. The boy, horrified that Sans appeared out of nowhere, shrieked, "Ah! My dad told me to! Don't eat me!" Sans, too concerned with his daughter's well-being, shot the kid a vicious glare as he ran off. Snow-dyed crimson, Vivaldi's castle had been comprised of snow, ice, and rocks. Her nose profusely bled, a cut under her right eye, and bruises blossoming on her face. Blind rage. How fucking dare he? How fucking dare he instruct a child to hurt another? His sweet pea. Sans could blast the man into nothingness. No one would ever know he existed. Ashes and charred remains. Lift him into the air and smash him down, shattering all of his bones. Devour the fucker whole. He wanted Sans to be a monster? He would get a monster. Left eye blazing with red magic, right socket empty, shaking with pure anger. Oh, the things Sans could do to murder that arrogant fucker. Humans broke so easily. Daddy? A soft sniffle, then another that turned into full-blown bawling. Warm tears ran freely down Vivaldi's face, blood streaming from her cheek and nose. Sans snapped out of his rage. Sweet pea. He frantically looked around for something to clean her face with. Her scarf was the only fabric he could find, dabbing and wiping away the blood. "Ver!" Sans yelled and gestured for the boy to come over quickly. "We're going home." Verdana ran over, playfully dragging a child behind him. "Daddy, can Richie stay His words quieted when he saw his sister's face, bloody and bruised. Turning to the young boy, the color drained from his face. Maybe some other time. Sans picked Vivaldi up and quickly grabbed Verdana's small hand, making their way to the exit of the park, Vivaldi sobbing loudly into Sans' coat. Sans stopped at the table that the man was now leaning against, smug look plastered on his face. "Verdana." He paused. "Go get a hot chocolate from over there," motioning to a stall where teachers were handing out warm drinks to the children. When Sans was sure Verdana was out of earshot, he covered one of Vivaldi's ears and pressed her head into his coat to cover the other. "Listen here, fuckstain," Sans spat and kicked the table to get the man's attention. "You're really lucky my wife is a pacifist, 'cause if they weren't," his grin terrifying, sockets black, "you'd be dead where you stand." An empty threat, but it got the point across. Frisk wasn't home yet when they got back. Good. It gave Sans time for some damage control. Sans tossed Verdana on the couch and turned on some children's programming. He quickly took Vivaldi over to the bathroom to tend her injuries, sitting her on the counter and inspecting her face. "Doesn't look broken." He carefully cleaned dried blood from around her nose and cheek with a damp washcloth. "I'm so sorry, sweet pea." "Why?" Vivaldi's face showed very little emotion. She was exhausted from the pain and crying. "I didn't do anything." "I know, honey. People are stupid." What could he say? Maybe if Frisk had taken them, this could have been avoided. They could have gone tomorrow. Life was going to be hard for them, and it was his fault. I love you, lots. Remember, I'm always here. My scarf is ruined. The young girl's eyes went downcast as she held the blood-stained fabric. Sans pondered for a moment, before unwrapping his scarf from around his neck and folding it up. It's a little long, but you'll grow into it, he said, handing his daughter the black and red scarf. Red eyes wide and bright, she held it close to her.
Thank you, Papa.
Anything for you.